I recognized what we are all missing, and that is that authentic self, helping people to learn that there's nothing wrong with them. They're just hurting.
One of the biggest aspects is authenticity and just being really real and being yourself.
We are complex human beings that are going in many different directions with many mindsets and many different intentions in our life. And if we can allow ourselves that grace to be like, but you know what? With all my imperfections, with all my missteps in life, I'm still trying. Then there's something to be said about that.
I think ultimately, there's a lot of people that are very fearful. And my job is to sit and talk about realistic happenings and bringing people and grounding them.
So for me, it was a lot to kind of let go of, and I had to work on myself to get myself to where I needed to be.
All of a sudden, everything kind of fell on my shoulders, and I didn't know how I was going to kind of take care of everybody. And I decided that I was going to get more serious about taking care of myself.
So I've learned in my life that whatever you're focusing on, you give yourself. You're really doing it to you.
In the ceaseless whirlwind of life, amidst its challenges, joys, and sorrows, lies a quest for balance. In finding balance, we delve into the lives and insights of 7 remarkable individuals, each with their own unique stories and perspectives. As we embark on this journey, they share their wisdom, their struggles, and their paths to equilibrium.
I remember in 2015, when I cycled across Canada, I came back and everything was an absolute mess when I got back. And it was all my own self-destructive behavior. I didn't account for, the letdown of, climbing the mountain, if you will, right? For 18 and a half months leading up to that ride, it was all about training and exercise, eating, right? But when I got back, what I didn't recognize was what the down slope was going to be, right? And I was just an absolute mess, to self-destructive, gong show, if you will, for 11 months. And it was one day in May. I remember my wife and daughter were in bed, and I was kind of scrolling through, mindlessly, social media apps, and I came across this app that said something about 20-20-20, where you exercise for 20 minutes, you read for 20 minutes, and you just write cathartically on a journal for 20 minutes. And I thought, you know what, that's a little bit of intentionality that I can do. And so I decided to do it, and I felt like I accomplished something.
I found myself in a situation where over years and years, I was living in chronic stress. I became very, very sick. I got to the breaking point where I recognized that what I was doing wasn't working. It wasn't helping my loved ones, and it certainly wasn't helping me, because I became unable to manage just daily things. My son struggles with mental health and addiction issues. It was something that really rocked my world. I lived in fear every single day of losing my son to addiction. And I was repeating the same terrifying thoughts. Every time I talk to him, I feel most people have to go through, I call it the unfolding. You hurt long enough that you see something more for yourself and you're willing to do more, because really nobody can do it for you. So I started to work on myself. I switched the focus back to myself. I started prioritizing myself. I started taking care of myself. And I started to dig into these cycles and patterns that are showing up in my life and the people around me, and recognizing that it had a lot to do with my thoughts. And I started to really become aware, so practicing mindfulness. And through all these different strategies, training, yoga teacher trainings, many different lineages of healing modalities, I started to reignite this light within that really had dimmed.
I couldn't wait, actually, to be a parent. So when I fell in love and decided that it was time to do that, I was very expectant. I read all the books. I prepared my baby's room and was really excited. I had a beautiful pregnancy, actually. It went really smoothly, and even his birth was really beautiful and gentle. I had midwives, and you couldn't pick it to be better. And I feel like that's as far as I had prepared myself, because in my mind, the rest was going to be blissful and easy. just like in the movies. And when it didn't go that way, it was deeply painful. I struggled in the beginning to form a bond with my son the way that I had envisioned. And although I could care for all of his needs, I wasn't feeling it the way that I expected to feel it. And that surprised me and scared me all at the same time. And in that first year of his life, I was definitely, like in retrospect, looking backwards, definitely dealing with postpartum depression. But it was undiagnosed. 1 year later, at 8 months in, I was weaning my second son. And at that time, I was obviously not getting a lot of sleep, and a perfect storm kind of came together. And I found myself in a really vulnerable state. I was experiencing hypomania and then mania, which is, if you're not familiar with that, like a really heightened state where you're talking fast, you can't concentrate on one thing, you're doing a million projects at once, you don't really feel the need to sleep or eat.
That eventually became psychosis.
When it first happened to me, this intense heightened state, I was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. At that time, I remember my sister coming to me the day after I got that diagnosis and was out of the hospital, and her holding my hands and saying, "Sarah, the best thing you can do for yourself right now is to accept this diagnosis, and that's how you move forward from here." And it was the first time I really understood what acceptance is and why that's step number one.
Recognizing our own patterns and thoughts is the first step to healing. Understanding the cycles that affect our mental health can pave the way to profound transformations.
We're seeing an increase of people struggling with mental health and addictions and codependency, which is something I didn't even know existed. 9 out of 10 people are experiencing codependency. And that is literally looking outside of yourself for pleasure, for happiness, for peace.
We lean more into fear and out of our natural state. And our natural state of being is peace and calm and love. And that's why it feels so good in the body when you're in a peaceful state. Your body is this beautiful, intelligent instrument that is telling you all day long with a million different cues that most of us, myself included, ignore all day long. But that's part of the journey, is discovering for yourself what is happening in your body when you're in a state of fear, or when you're anxious, or when you're irritated, or when you're sad.
So when we experience a negative, intense emotion, which is trauma, we create a new belief system. And that belief system, think of a little child playing on the playground, they're getting bullied. All of a sudden they create a meaning behind being bullied, that they're not lovable, that they're not good enough, that nobody likes them, that they don't fit in. And it replays over and over and over again. And it follows you for your entire life. So I create a false identity, which disconnects me even further from who I am. So therefore I'm living inauthentically, and my soul wants me to live authentically. So there's this fight between my authentic self and this false sense of self. And that's where depression comes in, and feeling those heaviness, that stress. It shows up in our minds as depression and anxiety and panic attacks. I used to think it was just me. There's something wrong with me. It's not. There's nothing wrong with us. We have just experienced really difficult things in our lives, trauma being at the core of addiction and mental health. And trauma really is not what happened to you. It's what happens inside of you.
We're not what we can't control. And we think about the past, or we worry about the future, and you have to allow yourself that sense of grace to be present. Just being like, oh, that's a nice smell, or I'm feeling the sun on my skin, and not always worrying and going to the next thing right away in your mind before you're even there, right? The next thing will always come.
There's all kinds of things you can notice about yourself. Maybe When you're anxious, you might feel a buzzing inside your body, or your muscles might feel more tense. Or maybe you'll notice that your brain is ruminating about the same thought pattern over and over, or you're replaying that situation yesterday and wish you had said something differently, that you were worried. Those are all symptoms that you are not right where you actually are, which is right here. The only thing that's true right now is that I'm in this room and I'm talking. And the more present I can be in that experience, often the more joyful it is. So listening to your body is step number one, really noticing your cues and asking yourself, what are my signs and symptoms that I'm not in that state of ease and peace? Everyone knows for themselves, but we just don't stop and take time and ask ourselves these kinds of questions. I really look at self-care as understanding your needs and honoring them. So, what is it that your body's needing in each moment? What is it that your heart is needing, your soul, your heart, wherever you want to refer to that? What is it that your mind and your mental processes need to feel calm and at ease?
Back in 2016, my kid's dad, he had a medical situation where he wasn't able to take care of the kids as well. And so I was having to care for them more than him. And myself at that time, I was kind of hanging by a thread. I wasn't getting great sleep. I was engaged in a toxic relationship, drinking alcohol probably more often than I should have, and just not feeling great already. And so all of a sudden, everything kind of fell on my shoulders, and I didn't know how I was going to kind of take care of everybody. And I noticed I was starting to get chest pain a lot, and progressively that was getting worse. And then it turned into dizzy spells. So I was getting chest pain, dizzy spells, but I was struggling with some depression. I saw my doctor, he ran some tests, and I took some time away from my work at that time because I really wasn't doing well. And so I went back and started focusing more on, getting back to my exercise, getting good sleep again. And interestingly, all of those symptoms went away. It was, for me, a good example of, I really need to hang on to these things because this is the impact if I don't.
I got into the Canadian Forces 15 years ago. So I've been here around a long time. And I think a lot of the challenges with that life is that you're always moving. I've lived from Nova Scotia to British Columbia, and now I've been in Ontario since 2016. And each place has its own challenges. In the last 2.5 years, I've been flying. I'm aircrew. So I fly a lot with our passenger aircraft, and I'm going quite a lot, but that is the exciting part for me. Before I started flying, I didn't think flying was an option for me. I was working with someone who was a hard personality to work with. I was being told every day I wasn't good enough, I shouldn't be there. So I was already having some doubt. I wasn't there mentally. I wasn't feeling 100%. It was around 2020. So just as COVID was kicking off, I remember sitting in my house thinking, I feel so alone. And yet I had a wife at the time and 2 kids, and I never felt so alone before. And it was pretty dark. It wasn't a good spot. So I lost my purpose. I'd lost my balance of really enjoying my life. A lot of it was, I guess, a lot of self-doubt. I wasn't eating well. A doctor said to me, if you don't start living healthier, you're going to get sick before you should. And that's when I decided to reach out. And they put me down the mainstream of nutrition to help me out, which changed my life. My blood work completely reversed itself. But then there was the mental. I had to catch up with myself because my body was thriving, but I was not necessarily caught up with that. I was still in the mindset that I wasn't going to be good enough. And that's when I actually reached out for help. You've got to be on top of your game to pass the required medicals for that. So that the challenge there was to get ahead of that game where I can because you lose control of your schedule. It is quite stressful. You never really know when or where you're going. You don't have a lot of control.
You're just doing the thing that you're responsible for.
which is taking care of yourself.
Nobody else in this entire world has the responsibility to care for me other than me. When I realized that, I seemed to be able to let go of the frustration I was feeling with other people.
The mind and body, intrinsically linked, form the foundation of our well-being. Understanding this interconnectedness is pivotal to truly living a balanced life. Amidst life's chaos, sometimes all it takes is a deep breath. Simple techniques rooted in ancient wisdom offer solace from the storms of stress and anxiety.
Mindfulness is one of the practices that is very powerful. And it can be as simple as getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth. Most of us live either in the past or the future, not here and now. So the first step in living authentically is being present, listening and paying attention to the thoughts. Because our thoughts, 95% of our thoughts are subconscious, which means we're not aware of them. 5% are conscious. So when you think about that, our subconscious mind is dictating how we're behaving. So when we start to pay attention to those quiet thoughts, the thoughts that we're not aware of, by coming back to present moment, we can then start to decipher the thought that's coming in. Is it true? Just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true. Go a step further. Is it 100% true? No, it's not 100% true. Okay, so where did it come from? Just start playing with it. And going deeper is, okay, is this thought expanding me or contracting me? Do I feel light and airy, or do I feel heavy and dense? Is it helping me or hurting me? If it's hurting me, why do I want to keep thinking it? And then at that point, that's where it gets amazing, because this is all about conscious choice. We can then start to reprogram our mind. We start reprogramming that subconscious mind to be aligned to our truth. Mindfulness helps us to actually find joy in the mundane, in the everyday things. And the joy comes from within. So allowing yourself to be present, and it is a practice. It doesn't just happen. It takes time. I still have hard days. I still struggle with mindfulness at times. It's about really staying present with yourself, being in touch with your emotions.
So there's two trains of thought. One, allow yourself some grace. So here's the thing with allowing yourself some grace. If you are having a point in your life where you're feeling tired or you're feeling like you can't do it, then there's a reason for that, right? So sometimes you need to lie in a little longer, right? You need to stay in bed a little longer. Maybe you need to, do a little bit less that day. But the other train of thought that I kind of subscribe to sometimes is do one thing, right? So just to keep the momentum going. It takes, I think the research says in the London School of Economics, it said that it takes like 66 days to instill a habit. What people don't know is it takes only 9 to lose it. And the other thing that I would say is don't rely on inspiration or motivation to do it, rely on your discipline, right? So here's what I mean by that. If I have a moment where I get up and I am not feeling like myself and I don't want to do it, I always just focus on one thing. So then if I say, okay, well, I don't want to work out today for 45 minutes. Well, you know what? But I can work out for 5. Let me just work out for 5 and see where that goes. Then all of a sudden the blood gets going, you get walking or you get moving. You're like, you know what? I did it for 5. Let's see if I can do it for 10. So next thing you know, it's a 30-minute workout. Allow yourself a little grace, but not to the point where that's what you're always going to do. If you find yourself lying on the couch, not doing anything, if I don't want to do it today, but I want to keep the momentum going, what is one thing that I think is really going to benefit me? Well, maybe it's meditation. Well, maybe that meditation was the one exercise or activity that you needed more than anything else, then do that, right? So find some discipline and lean into just at least one thing.
There's little things like, I know that there's, like yoga, like my world, you can go to many different yoga, centers, breath work, yoga, intuitive dance, like just moving, like shaking. I do a practice, a shamanic shaking practice. And it feels ridiculous when you first start doing it, but when I'm pissed or I'm sad or I'm just in a shitty mood, I come down here, I put on music and I dance and I shake the shit off. And I can't tell you how quickly I can move energy. So moving that energy, learning those healing tools.
I meditate every morning. It's one of the first things. I always get my coffee, which is kind of debatable, but I love my coffee when I meditate. I take 15 minutes. I usually find a guided meditation. I sometimes let it choose me. I get the apps are everywhere and I'll just decide on the spot. If I've got the time, then I'll do a yoga practice of some sort in the morning as well. I realize if I haven't done it in the mornings, I'm like, wow, I'm not there. It's a great way for me to start. It doesn't matter how I've slept or what's happened during the day, the night before. I can start myself like grounded for what it is and kind of bring myself back. It's probably my most, like, the biggest practice I've picked up in the last few years of this journey of mine. I'd always have a lot of thoughts running through my head that weren't always that great. I found them empowering and like overwhelming. And it was more, I always thought the meditation was about stopping them and like just preventing yourself from having these thoughts, whereas it's actually about letting them throw through you without you stopping them. It's resisting them that was causing a lot of my stress, and just helped me with just direct into a more of a positive mindset towards things. Is sometimes all the people need, just to stop and take a breath. Sometimes it's as simple as just sitting for 2 minutes and counting your breath, like consciously breathing in and out.
I get up at 5 a.m. and I started doing that probably around the 2016 or shortly after, because then I was able to take care of myself before I had to give to everybody else. So when everyone got up, I had, gotten ready, done my exercise, listened to my podcast, had, a coffee, and then I was like ready to give. So I think it's really about finding where it fits in your life and knowing that, it's this, we all know, on the airplane, put your oxygen mask on first, but know that you're only as good as you are to be able to take care of everyone else. So if you're not taking care of yourself, you're less able to show up for everybody else. So every morning I listen to podcasts while I'm getting ready, and it's always about something to do with wellness. So I feel like it keeps it to the forefront of your mind. So, when we get off track, it's because maybe we're not remembering all the things we need to do. When you look at wellness and the different aspects that we want to take care of ourselves, part of that is that maybe would fall under mental. So you're learning something, right? And you're nourishing yourself with this knowledge and information that can help support you. Consuming that kind of information every day can be helpful if that's kind of what you're trying to focus on.
For myself, I find that I operate on my best self is when I get up and I'm just disciplined enough to go and use one habit as a trigger to start the next. So I'll give you an example. I get up in the morning, my alarm goes off. That's a trigger to get my clothes, my workout clothes on. Once they're on, that triggers me to go downstairs and drink some water. When that one's done, triggers me to put some vitamins in my body, drink some more water, and then go down to, where I work out, stay active, things like that. When that's done, that triggers me to answer my questions, my journal questions and reflective practice questions, and then, have my coffee and eat the same breakfast. And so for myself, if I know that stuff works for me, and it may not be the same for every person, but what I recognize is that if you can stay disciplined for like the first 2 hours of your day on practices that are going to help you show up for your day, for your people and for yourself, then you're going to be, you're going to set yourself up for success, right? It's different for everybody, of course, but I find that those practices are the ones that help me become, my best self for not only myself, but for my family, my clients, people that I work with.
I think it is really key just to find the things that you will do or that you enjoy, and also remembering that you're also not going to want to do them a lot of the time. And it's just a matter of going, I'm doing them.
It's remembering these tools in the moments of despair. And this takes practice throughout your entire day, that you catch yourself in those moments to be able to go, you know what? I'm going to breathe for a minute. And you breathe and then you move on with your day, right?
Breathing exercises, the 3-6-9 breath is something that I try to do. So 3 seconds, inhale, hold it for 6, out for 9. And if you continue to kind of do that, I use it on planes all the time. I use it in stressful situations when I'm, standing in line or waiting. I travel a lot for work and things. And so trying to use little different types of breathing exercises, I think trying to be as present as you possibly can.
For me with meditation, it's breath work. That's where I know if I'm breathing well, I'm in a good spot. If I come back to my breath and realizing I'm not taking a full breath, like, something's up here. And then I'll run my list. Like, did I eat well? Did I drink my water? Did I exercise today? Have I been outside? Did I meditate? It's always one of them that is kind of out of whack. And sometimes I do forget. I travel across different time zones, and sometimes I do forget, even knowing I look forward to it. But it's kind of, if I don't, I feel, I just don't feel as alert, or at least alert to my thoughts of like, I'm not speaking very nice to myself right now. Or maybe I'm not as calm as I usually am. It's nothing for me to take 10 minutes, sit underneath my aircraft and just do a quick 10 minutes. People see me out there in a seated position. They know that I'm going to be 10 minutes, and then I come back to it and we get the job done. So yeah, it's an incredible tool. I've meditated in flight many times, on the cargo aircraft and the passenger aircraft as well. And what I like about meditation is you can take it everywhere. And the apps work all over the world too, so it's always available, which is what I like. It doesn't need any equipment. You just do it.
Nature is like so big for me. I'm so passionate about that. I can go, to a hiking trail, and maybe I'm having a hard day or something hard has happened, and go in feeling, sad. And by the time I'm done, of course, all the problems aren't solved, but I always feel better. And also just a sense of peace. So this morning I went out for a hike, which I generally do most mornings before work if I can, seasonally, if it's not too dark. And, just being out in the woods, there's just a sense of, you smell the smells. I feel like you feel more present because you're kind of like looking around at your surroundings. Just a sense of peace that you get from it.
I had a recent trip to Hawaii, actually, with work, and I was the one that arranged a beach sunrise yoga thing. And I said to my crew, who wants to go? And the guys were like, no, I'm not doing that. But then, don't do that. I had a great morning, and that's how I began my day. So I'm the one who saw the turtle. I'm the one who saw the seal beached up on the beach that came alongside us. Being out. And again, it's being out in nature.
The pen, they say, is mightier than the sword. For many, it's a tool of reflection, of self-expression, and ultimately of profound healing.
Just had a journal, and I wrote at the top of each page a heading. So physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental. And so what I did was I put just one or two practices that I would actually do under each heading. So for physical, I remember starting with getting enough sleep and drinking more water. I had things like doing yoga twice a week, getting out in nature, connecting with family and friends. And so I just kind of started really slow. And over time, I had, kept adding more and more practices. And I really feel like that's really made a difference in my life, that now when things happen, I have more resilience. It's what you do every day, and I really firmly believe that. I think that if I didn't do the things that I do regularly, that I definitely wouldn't be so able to deal with things that come up in life.
When you write, you connect to your deepest inner layers, and it's incredible what comes out. Your fears come out onto the page, your beliefs about yourself, things that are keeping you small and in your comfort zone, all tumble onto the page. And it's incredible what you can discover about who you really are when you just spend some time writing. In that moment, I realized that even though painful stories are sometimes hard to tell, the act of telling them is healing.
Being myself gives me purpose. It gives me a reason to get up every morning because I know what I want to do. I know what I feel aligned. I know it makes me feel good, and I feel expanded, and I feel love, and I feel light.
If we can allow ourselves, that grace that we are not made up of our thoughts. We are not made up of, what other people's expectations of ourselves are.
There is a lot to be said about how we can change our mood with using tools like that for whatever that is for you.
In a world often ruled by quick fixes, the holistic approach offers a beacon of hope. It emphasizes the essence of being genuine, of authenticity in every step of the healing journey.
Because we all have busy lives and a lot of responsibilities on our shoulders, that maybe we would ask our resident meditation and alignment coach, Steph, to just help us arrive. We're just going to take a few breaths together. I like to place my hand on my heart, and you're welcome to do the same. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, just allow your gaze to soften or look downward. So let's imagine in this moment, drawing in breath through the back of the body, nourishing the heart space, and finding pause. I am here. And breathing out through the front of the body. And opening your eyes. Walk you to the moment.
We're a holistic wellness center. We offer a wide variety of classes, services, like one-on-one services and events. Pretty proud of the positive approach that we take to healing, but it was important to us that we have a space inside the center where people could gather and people could have, the opportunity to talk to one another and learn from one another and build friendships and connect. Be a soft place for them to land and tell their story. Because at the end of the day, we really don't know exactly what anybody needs. All we can do is show up with love and kindness and compassion and gentleness. And it's amazing what people are able to do and people are able to heal when that is the central point or the part of the approach. So many times we experience stressors throughout our day over and over, but then we don't dump the stress. And we just expect to keep things in our life that's causing us stress. And we don't close the loop on that. And then the next day that stressor's back again. The biggest one of all was, when we all went through the pandemic together. That was a huge stressor that was out of control, out of everyone's control. No one can bring control to that. And so it was in our face every single day. The people that really were quite successful getting through that with, less pain than others were the people that were habitually committed to dumping that stress and closing that stress loop. Exercise, sleep, eating well, spending time with family and loved ones, closing that stress loop is important. So my theory and my experience about all of this is you need to listen to yourself. You need to listen to what are the tools, resources, teachers, professionals that resonate with you right now in this moment. Because it can shift and change over time.
I took hypnosis in 1996 and it worked miracles for me. And I did all kinds of therapies at those days. Reflexology, Reiki, herbology, iridology, all those things, all those ideologies. But when I hit working with the mind, which is really my forte, if you will, I really love working with the mind of people and finding out why they act the way they do. When people change who they, they believe they were one thing and they realize that they're total love. They're loved and accepted by the universe, and they changed how they think and what they think about themselves and about the world, and it transforms them.
Beyond the tangible realm of our daily lives lies the vast expanse of the spirit. Spiritual wellness touches on the profound connection we feel to the world around us, to others, and to a higher power or purpose. It's a journey of seeking meaning, understanding our purpose, and finding serenity.
If you don't take, responsibility for your own life, you can't fix what you need to fix. I don't think that people do it on purpose. Absolutely not. I think it happens because they just can't get out of the loop of that's going around in their head to forgive whatever is happening, that everything happens for a reason. You talk to yourself in a loving way. Every day and every way, I'm better and better. It's the forgiveness. And as soon as they can forgive, it renews their whole being. I was in an inner conflict constantly of fear. There's only love and fear, one or the other, and one cancels out the other. I know that I have a presence with me that everybody has. They're looked after all the time. And it's not just happening for me, it's happening for people who start to believe that way. I have a track record with this entity or this spirit or this energy that works every single time. Without a doubt, it can happen for you, it can happen for me.
From the essence of our breath to the tangible steps we take every day, our journey is punctuated with moments of realization and action. From the omnipresent spirit that guides and nurtures to the significance of taking one small step at a time. This reminds us that even the grandest journey begins with a single step.
But I remember feeling so helpless with so many things going on around me, and that was scary, right? And I think that's part of what we're dealing with in the helping roles collectively in the community, in those places where we can create change. You're looking at it and you're just kind of going, I don't even know how to process this day, and where do we start? And so it's always what we can do right now, right here. We're an agency of small steps. I mean, in the work that we do, it is small steps every day, because that's the journey. Bringing someone through homelessness and mental health and addictions to moving forward to life stabilization.
One of the things I love the most about opportunities like this is that those things that are challenging us, we suddenly begin to realize that we are not alone in what we're dealing with, like that the way that I feel and the things that are hurting me or painful for me, oh wow, I'm not alone in that. Other people are experiencing that too. And when other people have realized this and are able to share some of the things that are working for them, it gives you hope. And that's really all you need, sometimes to begin to move out of that place of darkness or real struggle or pain. And I think sometimes, when we're struggling with our mental health or our health in general, we can get to a place where we don't feel like we can ask for help because we don't want to be a burden, or we don't want anyone else to, have to help us through what we're going through. And yet those are the times when we need to ask for help the most.
Reaching out, seeking help is a testament to strength, not weakness. Yet the journey's not without its challenges, emphasizing the need for effective, compassionate solutions.
Our wellness is so fragile at times right now, and I mean collectively, because trying to find resources if you're in an acute crisis, we hear the stories every day. We know we are losing people to opiates. We know we're losing people to suicide, and where people have just been overwhelmed by what they're facing, trying to get a connection to say, you know what, I don't feel my bubbles in the middle, and I'm feeling that everything I'm doing right now is just slightly off.
It becomes very emotional to try to address trauma. So we need specific tools. We need to know that we have supports in place and resources to help us to work through the pain so that we can break through these cycles of addiction, mental health issues, these challenges that we face. We know we don't have to suffer. This is my message. We don't have to suffer as long as we do. If we make this more acceptable, accept that we are just hurting individuals, that we have some pain that we need to process, and that there's no judgment around it. It just is. We're all going through it. If we could all just look at each other and go, I see you, right? I feel you. I'm with you. You're not alone, right? Then people are going to come forward a lot sooner and not suffer the way that they are suffering right now.
We just need to help people with the tools that help them shift the way that they look at things and how they experience their own journey. And it is hard to ask for help. It is hard to reach out and tell someone share your vulnerability, because that's what you're essentially doing, is you're putting yourself in a vulnerable space.
Emotion dysregulation is a huge thing. It's okay to be angry. Angry is good. Angry is a great emotion. But when it is out of control and you are not in control of it, that's a problem. If you're, really struggling to function, get out of bed, that's a problem. That's a challenge. You're hurting, you're suffering. And this is where the stigma around mental health, around addictions, around the challenges that people are facing, anxiety or panic attacks, the stigma around it is a programming, is a conditioning that we're not supposed to be this way, that something's wrong with us. So people suppress it. And the more we suppress it, the sicker we get. And crises don't happen on Monday to Friday from 9 till 5. I think just tapping into the ability to reach out, to find that community where there is support. It doesn't have to necessarily be a doctor or a therapist, but a community where you can go to just connect, because connection is what people are missing.
It takes a lot of courage to have that conversation with someone you love. It also takes a lot of courage to sit there and listen to it. All you can do is have that gentle conversation. When we start to shift that lens and understanding mental illness and addiction through a trauma lens, that something has hurt or something is hurting, then you automatically shift that voice of empathy. And so these conversations come from a place of anxiety when we're trying to have it with people we care about. But when you can reframe it and think about what is hurting so bad, that this is how you're responding or how you're acting, how can I help? I think it starts to shift the dialogue. It's not going to make it an instant cure, but it allows you at least to have open and honest communication.
And I've learned this through my own journey. I was triggered by my son's mental health issues and addictions and relapses and crises and hospital visits and near-death experiences. And in those moments, through my own healing, my own pain, I can sit with him when he is in pain and just listen without having to fix or solve or change. When we're able to sit with ourselves in our pain, we can sit with others and it not trigger us, it not create havoc or chaos. That's where the magic happens, because the lens in which we view ourselves changes and the lens in which we view others change. And at that point, we're seeing each other as equals, because honestly, you and I are the same. We are all one. We are all living this life, this masterclass of lessons and of learning and of awakening to who we are. And who we are is actually one.
Mental health meant you're going to lose your job and get put on medication. And that's certainly not true. And having gone through, and I've had a lot of sessions, I'm not ashamed of that. And I didn't want medication either because I wanted to fly. It was a factor, and I'm like, so I've got to do this myself, which is why I did it through practices. I struggled with that because it's a very masculine-based workforce, and that's why I used to think there was something wrong with me. I'm not man enough to do this or whatever. But now people they're changing that mentality. We have to. The old days are gone, and it's for me, it's self-care, but it still certainly wasn't something I'd ever be putting on social media that I was doing yoga, but now I do. And, I to be honest with you, I don't mind. I don't care about the judgment because I know I'm doing what's best for me. I've learned to let go of some control. I've learned to let go of some friendships that I had in the past that may not have been serving me and that may have brought me down the path that I was going on.
When I was struggling the most, I started to write the things that felt good to write about. So something simple like the way my baby cooed at me that day, or the butterfly we noticed in the garden. Or I would write about those things and feel grateful for them. And I would fold them up and put them in a jar, knowing that I wouldn't read them again in that moment, but I would wait a period of time and be able to reflect back on all those little tiny moments that I had forgotten months or years later, that in that tiny moment had brought me a lot of joy. And the other way I used it was in moments of pain and feeling stuck in a dark place where I couldn't see any hopeful way forward. That's the other thing, is you have to give yourself permission to change your mind about things. If we hold, stuck to one way of looking at things, we're missing out on a whole breadth of possibilities that we just can't see right now. So filling your toolbox as you go with as many tools as possible is a really powerful thing to do for yourself, for sure.
I think the other thing to remember is that, you're always going to have your ups and downs. Things are going to happen in life where it kind of like throws you back and you are going to lose some of your practices. But if you can have that awareness and start to notice and go, okay, yeah, I've stopped doing this. I know I need to get back to this. And often it's because we do what we feel like instead of what we know we should do. I've
had tough times recently, and I always say, well, what can you imagine if I didn't do these things? Like I'd be back to where I was a few years ago, or maybe worse, who knows? and catch myself in that. And if I take a couple of minutes just to center myself again, that's better to do that than just keep going down that rabbit hole where it's something that's going to go wrong. So I could take that time and do what I need to do to get myself back.
I actually think that things have improved because of what we just went through as a world the last couple of years. Think of the sharing of emotions, the being sensitive to other people's reality and their story and their emotional state, that I think it's getting easier to access therapy or other types of professional help.
As our journey comes to an end, we reflect on the shared wisdom, the stories, and the continuous path to finding balance. It's a reminder of the importance of self-awareness, authenticity, and the role of a supportive community. In the pursuit of balance, remember, the journey itself is as significant as the destination. Together, let's continue seeking, understanding, and thriving.
I've had tons of professional help. And I am grateful to every single one of those professionals that came into my life when they did, because they all brought something, they all taught me something different. And there's no doubt about it. It was hard to ask for help, and it still is. I'm in the business of supporting people, and I still find it hard to acknowledge when I need help because of my personality. I'm determined, and I like to power through things. The moment that you actually take that action and reach out and ask for help, it's incredible how much lighter you can feel in just the action of even just making the phone call.
And this goes a long way in breaking the stigmas and the judgments that go in this whole circle of mental health challenges. We all have the power to rise up. I am learning to love and accept myself for exactly who I am, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And from that place, I'm able to love and accept other people for all of who they are.
The wonderful thing about mental health is that we're very positive and we can move forward and we do these messaging. The horrific thing about mental illness is it takes all that positivity and says, like, you're worthless, you're nothing, that you can't do this, you're a failure. It's that constant refrain going through your head, and it just negates any piece of positive in your life. And that's, I think, one of the most insidious things about mental illness when it starts to creep into someone, because it destroys them from the inside out. And they lose that confidence, or they lose that ability to see themselves in this light. Instead, it's only this negative, sad, horrific at times voice inside. But there's the commonality, and mental illness is like that too.
In a world that often feels chaotic, where pressures come from every direction, many of us grapple with the challenge of finding our balance. Our authentic self is often hidden beneath layers of societal expectations and personal hardships. We embark on this journey together, delving deep into stories of real people, each echoing a universal longing for understanding, acceptance, and balance.
It's how do we carry our trauma burden in a frame of wellness so it doesn't suck us back. It doesn't make me use again. It doesn't make me go back to a partner that, didn't treat me right. The recovery is always happening, and we forget that because we think in a physical way we can, but recovery from any trauma, anything like that, is always daily, minute for minute, sometimes second by second. We don't always have the same experience, but we've had things that have impacted us. It really is about understanding your emotions and their impact on you. And it's also understanding what's emotions and what's mindfulness and what is wellness attached to that. And that sounds so hard to do, but it really is just sitting in stillness and checking in on yourself. Something went wrong and you're doing that reflection. But I think sometimes it's in the morning when you're just checking yourself, how does this day feel? How can I step into this day?
That's the other really beautiful thing that I've learned on my journey, is that our vision for things is so small. We can only see like a little bit in front of us. And we think we know what is the right direction to go in. And we have this idea of what's good and what's working for us. And it turns out that half the time, most of the time, the way that it actually unfolds is way better than we could have ever imagined. It's just way better.
You're just created like everybody else, perfect as God made you. And you're a beautiful being. You just love yourself. And some people have a very hard time loving themselves. So transformation techniques help people with that thinking. And they get to see that wrong thinking has caused them to be bringing all this garbage onto themselves. And when you think you're worthy, you will get what you're worthy of. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Just be kind to each other, but courtesy, simple courtesy. Maybe that's what we're lacking, right?
There was a better way forward from where we were, and that it wasn't all about darkness. When there's a tiny seed of hope that's planted for someone, that's all you need to begin to start to see things differently. And just one tiny step forward, one foot in front of the other, is how we heal.